Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Reload Podcast, along with Nathan Gilsleider and Marshall Scott. I'm Justin Southwell. We're coming to you on a Monday night because Marshall just could not miss the Packers-Cowboys game, which turned out to be a lot more entertaining than we had originally anticipated. Of course, ending in a 40-40 tie. But Marshall, I don't know, man. Was it worth it?
No, a tie was not worth it. I'll tell you what. I'd rather the Packers have tied. I'm Packers owner, by the way. If new to listening, have a Micah Parsons jersey. Was gonna wear it today had things gone differently. But so would rather have them have tied than lost that game. But it didn't feel great staying up till 11 whatever p.m. and then going to bed because your team tied. Not a good feeling.
Well, we are here to talk about another Cowboys team that played a team in green and yellow, I guess.
There you go. I don't know. They're kind of gold. You never know what color they actually are. Is it neon? Is it gold? Is it green? Is it yellow?
Baylor's all over the place. They've got.
They're not to get too far off track, but they're the most frustrating uniform team in college football or basketball.
And basketball.
Especially basketball.
Basketball's the worst. They come out looking like a highlighter one game, and then the next game they look like Notre Dame. And it's like, what are we doing here?
Major drop-off from their past uniforms to what they currently are wearing. But all white, not a bad look for them, I guess, on the road. So I can appreciate that. However, unfortunately, Oklahoma State fell to Baylor as we kind of had anticipated, but maybe not so much in the way that the game unfolded because Coach Meacham had these guys fired up. Energy was going, and we saw a lot of stuff on the sidelines that we haven't seen in a long time from a coach. Just wanted to kind of get your guys' thoughts on that overall, and let's also dive into what I think was I think Meacham even alluded to it, the building blocks for the future as far as OSU's offensive creativity for that game. So, Nathan, what were your initial thoughts? And then Marshall, I'm gonna bounce back to you because we're gonna dive all the way into those 10 thoughts that you've written up for us. So,
it's not uncommon, especially for script. We talk about this often, right? We are pretty good at our scripted plays, like most teams are. So, you see that first drive and you pop a big run and you do some things and you're like, okay, seen this before, like no big deal. But it continued and it evolved. And I really don't like the term trick plays because I think they're just misdirection. That's what they are, quite literally.
Absolutely.
And so, these people love to call them gadget or trick. It's not what they are. They're misdirection. It's kind of semantics, but it's the truth. So when coaches look at it and they look at putting them in, all you're doing is you're just trying to get them off balance. You're trying to do certain things. And that alone in itself is something we haven't seen from Oklahoma State in years of using different formations, getting Sam Jackson out there because he's your best athlete and he can do certain things that nobody else can do. And it's a wrinkle. And now people have to account for him, not only when he's a wide receiver, but now all the different things that you can do. Because side note, he throws the best football I've seen on this team. The kid can absolutely rip it. Like it comes out of his hands. So nice.
This is really what I had wanted from the very beginning with Haas Haney.
Exactly.
And it's like you have the opportunity to put them in. You want to call it a trick play, go ahead, but line up Haas in the slot or whatever the case is. Where you have those misdirection plays or the double passes, but to open up your offense and to have some creativity to give the defense anxiety.
Yeah, it's 100%. And we saw that. We saw an empty set. We saw some other things. Here's probably the most frustrating thing of all of it is, yes, I guarantee you they put in a few wrinkles that, for the week because it's a Tuesday. So typically you already have your game plan set. But the problem is that 95% of what we saw has been in the playbook since August. It's just not been touched.
Yeah. Where has it been? Right.
Well, somebody got their thumb taken off and now you're able to call freely. And I think you saw that. I think you saw freedom. Now, did we get a little bit loose with it? Yeah, probably. But there's a freedom to it that we haven't seen in a very, very long time from this offensive football. I mean, we had the most yards at half since I think 2021. We had the most yards in the first quarter since 2023. I mean, if we're being fair, completely fair, this talent on this offense right now is not anywhere close to either one of those teams in 21 or 23. And so it was just really refreshing to see. And there were some things that, just from an energy standpoint, we talked about last time, just like the lack of like guys, getting intense or doing things and jumping around. And you saw our coaches jumping around again. And I don't want to make too much of an 18-point loss, but at the same time, like there was a glimmer of hope that you haven't felt. And, again, the fan base, you lost 11 straight games at a 2:30 hot game, and you've got over 40,000 people. I mean, the fans respond, and it was pretty awesome to see. I was glad for Coach Meach. I thought the offensive line did a lot of really, really good things in this game. And considering you're already, you're down a couple guys, their improvements have been made every single week by the offensive line, and I thought they did a lot of really, really good things in that Baylor game.
Yeah. To be able to execute some of those misdirections, plays have to develop. It takes longer. They did a better job for sure. All right, Marshall, let's dive into some Scott's thoughts. I've got the 10 thoughts pulled up here. Nate kind of touched on some of those as far as it being sort of fun. Offensive refresh. Secret weapon, Sam Jackson. So we don't have to dive into all those one by one, but give us kind of your synopsis over what you saw.
Yeah, on it being sort of fun, I compared it to, it's sort of like watching an Adam Sandler comedy movie. It's not going to win an Oscar, but I don't hate myself that I watched it. I think that's a good spot to be when considering we watched the Oregon game. We watched the Colorado game last year. The West Virginia game that was really bad last year as well. So it was at least a step forward in terms of, had a good time looking at this game. You mentioned the offensive refresh, mentioned Sam Jackson. Wendell Gregory is like a legitimate problem. I think there was like 3 plays in a row where he drew a holding call, or at least 2. The fourth down that Baylor went for, he didn't end up making the tackle, but he blew the play up. He was in the backfield right when the ball was snapped. We talked with Grant Segrin today on Monday, and he was just sort of asked, like, how difficult is it going against a guy like Gregory? And he mentioned that he's both fast and strong, and you can't really like play one or the other, because if you're bracing yourself for impact, he's going to run around you. And if you're getting light on your feet, he's just going to pick you up and chunk you. So Oklahoma State's got to do whatever it can. And, the stats weren't necessarily like popping from Saturday, but Oklahoma State's, he's got to be high on the list of guys that you're looking to retain is Wendell Gregory.
You saw that too, Nate? That was one of your big points, I think.
Yes, very much. I mean, the kid pops, and he's so raw, and you're just like, man, like, please, like, whatever you need to do, OSU, keep him, because he's a cornerstone type of kid as he continues to progress.
Redshirt freshman.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. Like, it's
raw,
every physical skill and talent you could ask for.
Keep him and develop him, right? I mean, it just seems like with some of these players that have been on the roster for a few years now, there's maybe been a lack of development.
Absolutely.
It's fair to say. With the coaches moving all around, different coordinators, whatever the case is, does that stunt development, or how do you view that, Nate?
I don't think it does necessarily, because I think, number one, for a kid, from his development is going to come from live bullets, just getting out there and continuing to see, right? I mean, because of his physical skills, he's just got to see something and learn how to read and react and work on those individual moves. So I don't necessarily see him like slowing down his growth process if he stays healthy. I know we'll get into some other news, but I really believe that some of the things that have happened in the last 24 to 48 hours are only going to set him up for more success. And so I'm excited to see what he can become. And again, you need to start identifying priorities.
Yeah, true.
Moving forward,
he's a priority.
He's one of those guys. And I mean, who knows? For all we know, he could, by the time we're done recording, he could jump in the portal and redshirt. I'm just saying, but
it could happen, but don't.
But you just need to make him know that. You need to let him know, right? Like, hey, we're gonna write this thing up, and you're gonna be a big reason.
And Marshall, you've got the defense as a whole leaves much to be desired. So
yeah, and we'll get into that a little bit with the Grantham news upcoming. I thought the punting decisions were interesting because Gundy gets a lot of flack for when he does and doesn't punt. 4th and 4 from the Baylor 39, they went for it, they didn't get it. We in talking with Meacham today, he said this funny thing that like he sort of forgot those were his decisions to make. He said he's usually like up in the box going like, let's go for it. What are we, soft? Like, come on. And then he was like, oh, I'm the guy making that decision now. So
I do love that mentality from him.
I do.
But
And in
also,
fairness, go ahead.
make sure you're running the routes past the sticks.
I'd say number one, I was going to say, yes, you're exactly right. Nothing drives me nuts more than calling it short of the sticks on a 4th and short, or the wide receiver running back just not getting their depth. Yeah. But number two, the reason that did not work is because Zane has got to get that ball out. Like, he held onto that ball way too long. If he gets that ball out in front and on, like, that's an easy conversion. So it's a decent call, but it's just the same thing, Justin. I was like, you've got to get your depth. Like, that drives me wild.
There was a 4th and 6 later in the game from the OSU 49. I think it was in the 4th quarter. They didn't go for. You could argue that they should have given the time and that Oklahoma State was down a lot. But 4th and 6, a little bit different than 4th and 4. I get it. Penalties were an issue. If we're gonna, heap praise on like, oh, this is what an offense looks like out from under Gundy's thumb. Well, this is something that Mike Gundy teams have historically been very good at is penalties, discipline, toughness, all that good stuff. OSU had 8 penalties, 100 yards for Baylor. Can't go giving a team a free 100 yards. That's just not how you win football games. I'm surprised it took me to thought 8 to get to this. I've been calling this forever. Trent Howland. Turns out if you handle the football, good things happen. He was
your guy.
Yeah, he was my MVP for the first game. Didn't even play. Just cannot stop getting yards. Throws a pass.
He came through. Came through.
So it sounds like that's going to be he's going to be a thing going forward. I asked him after just sort of the ups and downs of playing and not playing, and he gave a great answer. He's like, I'm an older guy. I've seen some stuff. I know that I just got to keep my head down and keep working. So that was all good to hear.
And your thoughts? Why did it take so long for him to get going?
Yeah, he gave a real candid answer on that I thought was very insightful.
Yeah, it sounded like he didn't have the best of spring balls. Meacham sort of wondered if he was a little soft, I guess, when he got there. And I've had this theory for a little bit that maybe a 247-pound running back doesn't translate as well to practice when things aren't maybe as physical as a game and stuff like that. But I guess if that's sort of contradictory to what Meach said. But every time that he's gotten the ball in the game, even going back to last year, it's usually gone pretty well. So hopefully they don't just all of a sudden stop handing him the ball like they have been.
Coach really talked about how in the last several weeks it's not, I don't know if a light switch or whatnot, and you can tell it's like he's really running behind his pads. Like everything is going in a linear direction. And sometimes when you get bigger backs like that, they're so big, they don't do a great job of utilizing everything they got. And then once they figure it out and they get everything behind their pads and they get that forward lean, that's what you see when he gets inside. He runs inside very, very well, because if those guys are not squared up on him, they are bouncing off. And he has really improved it. It's not the same, but it reminded me a lot of when Chris Carson figured out how to do that instead of trying to make those one jump cut and then go. When Chris Carson decided, I'm going to be behind my pads guy and run you over, he took a huge leap. That's kind of what I've seen from Howland. I know, like you said, last year he did show a little bit, but this year there's a big difference, in my opinion, whenever he has decided that, hey, whenever I get the rock, I'm just going to go and we're going to see what happens. And it looks really good. And he's the perfect complement to a Rodney Fields, because Fields is that jitterbug. He's going to give you 3 yards in a phone booth type of guy. And those two working together. And Coach Meach said Howland's got great hands. So I think working both those guys together, you throw in a Sam Jackson, you've got something back there where you can use multiples that's going to give a lot of issues to defenses on how they account for what's going on.
I've held this comparison, and I've probably used it before, but I try to not hype the backfield tandem of Fields and Howland up too much, but it reminds me a lot of Hill and Chris Carson. It reminds me of those days. And when you've got, little jitterbug, Oklahoma kid, young running back with a bruiser who transferred in. So I certainly like that.
And he can throw. Howland can throw too.
And he can pass.
How about that?
Which, speaking of, threw it to Royal Capel, true freshman. Not a ton of true freshmen playing. I think he's really the only one. Oklahoma State brings in 6 receivers from the transfer portal, and it turns out that they recruited a kid who's ready to play. So I've been asking everybody about him. Everybody has raved about. Obviously, I think he's like 5'11", 200, which For a freshman
Pretty
being
solid.
for a freshman being 200 pounds, that's pretty good. But everybody's just raved about how smart he is and how seriously he takes everything. And that's why he's on the field as early as he is. So certainly a name to watch out for, sort of giving vibes of, remember like 2017, whenever Tylan Wallace was playing and you're like, ooh, this kid sort of pops, but there's so many other, James Washington over the top. Oh, Marcel Aitman just caught this deep ball. How are we going to get Chris Lacey the ball? I have no idea. So that's sort of reminding me of
good days
right now. Yeah.
Good days. He just named off a really good wide receiver room.
Yeah.
I did have a trivia question for you guys. If you can tell me the last time Oklahoma State had 3 players complete a pass that were not quarterbacks. So throw away, you're probably thinking back to 2023 when we had the 3 quarterback rotation. 3 players completed pass that were not all quarterbacks.
It was Jalen McCleskey involved?
No.
Okay. Then that was going to be my only. For some reason, the only time I can think of a non-quarterback throwing a pass is whenever
Tyron Johnson. Was Tyron Johnson one of them?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
Whenever remember that K-State game, either 2017 or 2016, whenever they lost to Pringle, they're driving late.
Oh yeah.
And then they run a jet sweep. Remember it was TCU, it was purple. They'd run a jet sweep and then they take the ball out of Mason Rudolph's hands and are like, hey, Jalen McCleskey, you throw this pass. Throws an interception. They lose the game.
Throws an interception. Yeah, that was
sweet.
So
I've got no idea on your trivia.
2013 versus Baylor. We had Charlie Moore completed
I
the
just
pass.
wrote about that.
Charlie.
And Josh Stewart. So
he's a good player.
Quarterback in that game. So
Josh Stewart's a good player.
Just keep the trend up when you play Baylor, I guess. So, pretty cool.
Yep.
And that's really all I got on thoughts. There was one more sort of grand scheme takeaway of the sort of Gundy era in Oklahoma State moving forward. It's I've said it since it's happened. It's felt like a necessary thing to do. It can both suck for the history of Oklahoma State football, that this is how it had to happen, and be the right thing for Oklahoma State football long term, and sort of just like coming to grips with those 2 ideas.
I don't want to go super far and be like, oh, this was an indictment of Mike Gundy, but if we're being fair, it did not hold the brightest light to the fact of you got 2.5 days, and that's the most creative offense that we've seen in a very, very long time at Oklahoma State. And it's just, I don't know, it makes it hurt like a little bit more, just being like, man, could he just not take his thumb off? It's like, could he just not do it? You know what I mean? Like, just in something inside of him, just like not allow him, because he believes so much in what he's done forever. And
so, Nate, what did that look like practically? Because if I'm thinking about it from just my situation, just sitting here on the couch, I'm like, all right, Meacham's in control of the offense and he can call stuff down. Is it that he's like calling stuff down and then Gundy's like, no, we're not running that? Or like we're running the zone instead, like a zone read instead. And we're not going to do the Sam Jackson reverse pass or whatever the case is. Like,
yeah. So there's 2 things here that really stuck out to me. Number one, there are some post-game things that Dave Aranda said that were not glowing of our offense before we made the change. And it essentially summing it up, saying this offense is what it is. It doesn't really disguise much. It's very basic. We feel very confident in what we need to do to stop it. That's essentially what he said. And then he said all that went out the window whenever the change was made. And so, and this too, he is in a lot of meetings. He helps with the game plans. He puts the thumbs up if he approves of it, and for those game plans going into Monday and so forth. And so I think even from a game plan standpoint of like trying to keep things so simple, which he said all the time, and execute that, really, really held back a lot of things, because he kept asking his coaches, let's make it more simple so they can play faster. Let's take this out, and do these things and just execute them better. That works if you've got better Jimmies and Joes, and you've got guys out there that can make those plays that are, like, for instance, the difference between a Zane and a Haas is, okay, I'm just going to go ahead and keep things pretty simple because Haas is going to make something happen if it breaks down, as opposed to with the Zane, like, you got to get guys more open for him. You got to get him more clear reads and things like that. So there's the actual game plan implementation of maybe not wanting to get too risky on certain things because that's just his style. And then there's also him getting on the headset and saying, "Hey, we need to go. We need to run more this next series," and blah 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 blah. And I mean, even you go back to when we had this series of Oklahoma State football on the ESPN Plus, and you literally had heard him say, "Run the ball and throw it sideways." Those type of things, and you basically take the air out, and you don't let your coaches coach. And there's many times I've seen on the sideline when they zoom in on Coach Gundy, and he's talking, he's like, "Run the ball," and so he overrides. And he's the head coach, so he has that right. But it really has hampered, in my opinion, growth and creativity from a offensive play calling standpoint for several years now.
I wonder if that was kind of the point. It's like, run the ball. Okay, well, I'm going to run the ball right up the middle so I can prove to you that it's not working and we should be able to run my offense. It's like clearly stuff isn't working. And then, you mentioned Dave Aranda talking about that. It was a red flag all the way back to the South Alabama game that we lost, talking about how vanilla the offense was. And there was essentially like a change at that point whenever they decided to switch it up with the run schemes and give Ollie the ball. And that lasted for a while, but man, they just went right back to the same old basic vanilla stuff.
I took them as being disrespectful. I don't know if they were meant to be disrespectful, but the things that like Trey Lamb from Tulsa was saying, like, it's because he watched that film and was like, they do nothing that scares us. There's nothing on here that's like, oh man, you know what I mean? And that's the way they played.
I mean,
and that's exactly what you saw.
Yeah, it was kind of like Gundy had a lock on the seasoning cabinet. It was like, hey, Meech, go cook. Oh, now we got the lock off.
And no salt, big dog. No pepper.
It's pretty good.
Yeah.
Well, moving forward, we will be with another person leading our defense, as Coach Todd Grantham was dismissed as OSU's defensive coordinator following another rough day for the Cowboy defense. We got to hear from him this afternoon. And Marshall, what were your first impressions of Clint Bowen?
Yeah, he definitely killed that news conference with us. It helps that like we get a guy that we sort of know a little bit about, but not a ton about. So you just sort of start firing off everything that you even know about him and sort of gives up in return. But, has been a defensive coordinator before, has been on Kansas's staff for a super long time. He mentioned today that Mike Gundy has tried, I think it was either 2011 or 2012, to get Clint Bowen over. And he said Bowen actually sort of made Gundy mad the last time that he was like, I'm not going to. He said that Gundy told him that you've got to get out from Kansas. You've got to break free. You got to go, do some stuff. And so he didn't do that. Now he's here, and now all of a sudden he's the defensive coordinator. He was defensive coordinator at Kansas while Meacham was at Kansas as the OC. So this is something that these two have done together. It didn't generate a ton of success back then, but what did at Kansas? It's something I found super interesting. So after his last college coaching stop, which he was a DC at North Texas in 2020, he was a high school coach at Lawrence High School. He coached his kids, and it sort of sounded like he sort of fell out of love with football, and sort of that helped spur him to remind him like, oh, this is about the players. This is about, these kids playing this game that they love with their friends. They like running out of the tunnel and looking at the cheerleaders and waving to their family in the stands and stuff like that. So I thought that was just sort of a cool, personal aspect to that. As to how the defense looks, it sounds like he wants to simple things down. It sounds like that in both talking with Meacham, who sort of mentioned all of the disguises that he didn't, get specific on Grantham, but it seems like maybe they're disguising too much, and that's maybe a little bit confusing to the defense. Whereas if they can just simplify some things defensively, that would help both, tackling, that would help, them playing fast, that would help all those things. If you could actually turn around a defense in Game 5 going forward, I don't know how realistic that is, that this is going to look totally different, but there are at least good ideas tossed around, I guess, in that press conference today.
I do think it's realistic to see improvement because you really can't get a whole lot worse. The biggest thing for me is like the proximity to man is just, guys are just so wide open. And let's put this in context just for a second, because Baylor's offense is very, very good. Like very good. Their quarterback's going to probably be a first round draft pick. Their tight end Trigg, or whatever position you want to say that he plays, he's going to go in the NFL. They've got a bunch of dudes. So I don't want it to, act like they weren't good, but we made things way easier on them than they needed to be. And, I implore everybody to go to YouTube and the Pistols firing page and listen to Coach Bowen talk, because it's some of the most impressive, insightful conversations we've had in a while. And this is kind of like another breath of fresh air to be able to talk to coordinators and hear and see their thoughts and what they want to do differently. And, like he just has this aura of ownership that I love from a coaching perspective of like, good or bad, the players are going to tell you your job. And if you're putting them in positions that either A, they've never been in, or B, they're not capable of executing, that's on you as a coach. Just hearing stuff like that from him just makes it sound like he really, to your point, Marshall, is like gotten back to it's about the players and how do we make them successful and put them in positions to win and grow that confidence. And because in order to play fast on defense, you have to be extremely confident in what your eyes are telling you, because you have to read and react, right? You have to be able to go. You have to be able to get there, make the tackle. If you are second guessing yourself, if you don't trust what you're seeing, you're trying to disguise something so you're not getting back into the position you need to get into. All these, there's a lot that goes into it. But first and foremost, you've got to give him confidence. And I think just that alone, he seems like a very personable players guy. And I don't know this for anything, but if you're willing to make a move on a brand new defensive coordinator this early on, the vibes were bad. And there were some things going on in there that was not good for the overall team, because you just fired a coach of 21 years. You already just made a ton of changes. You would probably think, need to settle this boat down a little bit and then, let the waters calm. But if they felt like this was the best thing to do right now for the entire team, either to keep guys around or have success for this season, that tells me a lot about what was happening in those defensive rooms and just in the culture of that side of the ball that they needed to change.
Yeah, and it doesn't really do anything. I get like the timing is super weird, but from Oklahoma State standpoint, Todd Grantham's probably not going to be the DC next year anyways, because new coach is going to come in. So you're going to end up paying him whatever you owe him regardless. So I think cutting bait early, while it was sort of awkward that it happened, 5 days, 6 days or whatever after Gundy, it sort of was what it was. You saw Bobby Petrino, I think, fire the defensive coordinator now that he's taken over as the interim for Arkansas. So wasn't super shocked about that, especially considering, they played 2 power conference opponents, Oklahoma State has. And I get, Oregon's offense, elite, Baylor's offense, one of the best in the Big 12, but they gave up 600 plus yards to both of those teams. Baylor was like 4 for 17 on third down. Big plays were obviously, whenever you have yardage totals like that, big plays are a super issue, but Baylor had 9 passes of 15 yards or more and 5 rushes of 10 yards or more. So it's just like, there just like wasn't an aspect. And I think on top of that, like 6 for 80 yards, 6 penalties for 80 yards that the defense gave up. It was just like nothing good was happening for Oklahoma State's defense. There were times where they'd get them in a third down and you're like, okay, if they get a stop here, that's big. And then they just wouldn't. So yeah, it was just ugly all the way around.
Yeah. One thing I did find interesting is Chad Weiberg, our AD, he filled in for Coach Gundy on the coaches show, and they asked him that right away. Like, what was the decision, who made it, and things like that. And he said that it was a joint decision between Coach Meacham, Coach Glass, and himself. And that to me just kind of speaks to, if Coach Glass, who has the best pulse on what's going on between the players and their vibes and kind of how things are going, if Coach Glass and Coach Meacham felt strongly enough as interims to ask for this decision to be made, I think that speaks volumes of what needed to change. So I'm excited just to see if there's a difference in flying around and some of the things that we've been wanting to see.
Well, some change that you can make for your company is if you were to talk to Brewster Consulting Group, because the Reload podcast is brought to you by Brewster Consulting Group. Do any of these sound familiar at your company? Our processes are manual and inefficient with no documentation. Our data reporting takes forever and isn't accurate. We hear all the hype about AI, but have no clue what it actually means for our business. Our projects always run over time and over budget. If so, talk with our friends at Brewster Consulting Group. They help build organizations that run like well-oiled machines with clear processes, reliable data and reporting, and technology that actually works for you. Their team of Six Sigma black belts, PMP certified project managers, and seasoned data engineers have delivered solutions that are built to last for local clients like the Tulsa International Airport and Medify. They've also delivered solutions for large international enterprises like DP World. Even better, Brewster was founded and is run by a proud OSU alum and season ticket holder. Learn more about them at www.brewsterconsulting.com or learn more about their methodologies by connecting with them at Brewster Consulting Group on LinkedIn or YouTube. Anything else that you guys have heard about the coaching search? Any hot names that have popped up in your circles?
Yeah, I have tried to reach out to a few people that I respect and just kind of know some things, even just from the overall circle themselves. And one of the guys that I talked to really talked about how a guy named Chris Hummer from 247 Sports has a really good feel for kind of within the agents and things like that, and maybe a good list of names. And many of them are names that we already have talked about, but the list that he put together was, G.J. Kinney of Texas State, Colin Klein of Texas A&M. He threw in Coach Holgerson, which I don't see that happening at all. But Zach Robinson, obviously, Purdue coach Barry Odom, North Texas coach Eric Morris, Miami offensive coordinator Shannon Dawson, and Oregon offensive coordinator Will Stein. So that was the list that he put out. And quite frankly,
Nice.
That's a pretty short list this early on. So I feel like that's a pretty informed, hey, they're already locked into these several that, feel pretty good about that. So there's a lot of good names.
I'm surprised to see Holgerson's name on that list. I know that's, he didn't really enjoy his time in Stillwater, so I can't imagine who would want to become the head coach in Stillwater.
Right, but was his lack of enjoyment in Stillwater because of Stillwater, or was it because he's oil and water with the head coach?
It could be that, but it's also,
West Virginia.
It's very windy in Stillwater, and he does not like the wind. I'll say that.
That's a good point.
But
West Virginia is not exactly a metropolis.
But Holgerson, I thoroughly enjoyed him as a coach. I kind of wonder about his stops at West Virginia, Houston, now at Nebraska. He's
just not the program builder that we need from a structure standpoint.
I agree.
And yeah, I think that's probably my biggest takeaway. Yeah, from the things that I've learned and talked to right now, is I think the biggest thing that Oklahoma State needs to do, which it appears that Chad Weiberg may be doing this, but this is just me shooting off the cuff, is we need a structural overhaul of what the football program looks like. Just from we've got to start transitioning over to more of an NFL like front office, an actual pure GM, somebody that has a value chart type of thing where we're looking at how we're going to allocate our funds and really going after it that way. I feel like we are pretty far behind because Coach Gundy just quite frankly didn't believe in it. He didn't want to really do it, and who he has in place in certain areas right now, it's just kind of like people just kind of got into those positions and then they stepped up and did the best that they could. But I think for overall growth of the university and what we want to become as a football program, like that needs to be put into place, because regardless of who you bring in, if you bring in a guy like Zach or a GJ or Colin Klein, Will Stein, some of these offensive coordinators that have never built these structures, while they may have a plan in place, they have never done it before. And so it doesn't come with like a ready-made, hey, I'm bringing my GM with me, I'm doing this. So if we're unable to do that, then we have to go with a more tenured coach that has it and knows how to do it and so forth. And so when you look at a name like Barry Odom, being able to bring in an OSU guy like Josh Henson back with us and get things built that way. So much of what we do from a university standpoint, I think, is really going to dictate the success of who the next coach is going to be. Because I don't know, I kind of like it. Like Coach Gundy was like the chef that didn't write the ingredients down. He's like, this is kind of how I know I like to cook. I'm just going to taste it and see if it works, and then we'll just go from there. And so I think we really have to rebuild it from the ground up. And from what I'm hearing and what I've heard in the past, like Mr. Weiberg's had a plan in place to do that. He just hasn't want to fully thrown it on top of a coach that's been there for 20 years and be like, hey, we need to make these major changes. So we'll see.
Yeah, and
Good
I
time to
think
do it.
I also think it helps in terms of finding that structure. The fact that this process has started now and it's not starting in November or in
Absolutely.
December, because
Yes.
that's sort of what Chad was getting at. It's like, hey, whenever these coaches that we're interviewing have questions, we need to have the answer to those questions. So I think that's probably what Oklahoma State is doing right now, is trying to figure out, okay, what exactly do we want this to look like? And then we'll start talking coaching.
Yeah. And there's two more things that really stuck out to me about some of the things we talked about, some of the things that he said, but also you see some of the comments. It's like, you can't be scared that you're going to lose a coach before you hire him. So some of the stuff of like, well, we can't hire Colin Klein because if Kansas State comes, guys, he left Kansas State once as an offensive coordinator. If that meant that much to him, you'd stay there and then wait for your opportunity to take over. Number two, we pay our coaches extremely well. And if he's good enough that he wants to leave or somebody's going to pay him that much more money, that means we're doing something right. We're no longer the stepping stone. Just because somebody leaves doesn't mean you're a stepping stone school. It means that you're doing something right. I just want our fan base to kind of get out of that mentality of like being afraid to hire somebody because you're afraid that he might leave. That's okay. That's part of the business, guys. Like, that's what needs to happen. If people are coming and asking about your coach, it's because you're winning a lot of football games. We haven't had that in a long time. That's why Jim Knowles got poached. You know what I mean? Like, it sucked, but hey, we won a lot of football games because of Jim Knowles.
Speaking about Jim Knowles, this is us going back in time at this point, but Clint Bowen is going to be Oklahoma State's 5th defensive coordinator in 5 seasons, which just sounds absolutely crazy.
Because it is.
Nardo got 2 of those years, but then obviously Bowen's splitting this year with Grantham. But you go Knowles, Derek Mason, Nardo, Grantham / Bowen, and it's just like, how there's no wonder this defense is in the state that it's in, because these kids have been being told something different literally every year. Even in the Nardo year, he goes from the 3-3 to, hey, now I need you to run an entirely different defense. So it's hard to put too much on the defense just because of how in shambles that side of the ball has been for the last 5 years now.
That's a great point. I think you see that. Yeah, that's kind of shocking to 5 in 5 years. That's hard to do.
And it's not because they're getting hired elsewhere, unfortunately.
It's a fair point.
It's kind of like Knowles left whenever we were number 3 in the nation. These other guys have been leaving when we've been at or near the bottom. So hopefully Bowen can turn it around.
Do you guys have just based off of just who you guys like, or is there anybody that you guys lean towards who you would like to see as the next coach?
Mine, it only comes down to just what we saw against Oregon. Like, I love the play calling that we saw with Will Stein, and I feel like he also has seen what it takes to build a program with what he's seen with Dan Lanning. So I think that he can, in theory, carry that over to Oklahoma State, put his own spin on it, but he would know what it takes to build a program up. He knows what it's like recruiting, NIL, all of that stuff. So he and really Colin Klein are kind of my first two, like 1A, 1B. Zach Robinson's up there still, but I'm a little bit lower, I think, on some of these other G5 coaches that would be coming up to Oklahoma State, because I feel like when you hear somebody say you need to go out and get the best that money can buy, to me that does not translate to go out and get somebody from the group of 5 and pull them up to Oklahoma State and then hope it works out for the best. I feel like this hire is so pivotal that you got to get it right, and you can't necessarily roll the dice or take a chance on some of those guys. That's the way that I feel, but again, I'm glad that I'm not in this position to make that decision, because I could be totally wrong in that thinking, and GJ Kinney could absolutely come in here and crush it. He'd have to win me over, is I guess what I'm saying.
Yeah, I'm very much going to trust whoever Chad picks, because he's basically nailed every hire he's made, but I'm still in the Z-Rob camp, mainly because of just the nostalgia of it, and I understand that that's like a mindset that Oklahoma State has got to get out of. Is you can't just keep hiring the Oklahoma State guy. But like I said, in NCAA football 06, or no, it wasn't, I guess not 06, in NCAA football 11, my quarterback was wearing a sleeve because zero. I literally in high school and middle school wore the number 11 because of how cool Zach Robinson looked all the time. So that's still where my heart is at. The more and more I'm looking into Colin Klein, I like it. I like it a lot. Especially you look at what K-State's doing right now in a post-Colin Klein world. You look at what A&M's doing right now in a Colin Klein world. I think that one is being more attractive to me, as I wasn't honestly really even thinking about Colin Klein whenever this stuff started happening, like last year, I guess. But as that name keeps coming up and I keep like looking a little bit deeper each time, I have like the Colin Klein love.
Plus, there's probably a name out there that we have not touched on at all that could emerge as a viable candidate. Nobody was thinking about David Taylor whenever the wrestling job was up for grabs.
Didn't know it was possible.
We didn't know it was possible until it really happened. And not to say that there's necessarily somebody like that for football. Like everybody's got a pretty good pulse on what's out there, who's a good coach. I don't necessarily follow that in the same way. Like some people are obsessed with recruiting. Some people are obsessed with coaching carousels and who the next coach could be and where he might find success and things like that. I will be 100% behind whoever gets hired. So
that's fair.
I just, I'm excited to see who it is and then lean into it and learn more about the person, whoever it may be.
Okay. Now, if you had a coach, okay, no name, just think about it for a second, okay? Played in the NFL for several seasons, one of them underneath Bill Belichick. Was a QB coach, passing game coordinator for Sean McVay. Offensive coordinator in the NFL, who they're having, despite one bad game, they are having a lot of success, bringing along a young quarterback and helping him develop. Worked for PFF, had a job where all he did was create offenses for Texas high school football. If I told you his name was John Smith, you'd be like, that's a pretty good little resume. And the fact that he is Zach Robinson,
and he's won
a
ton of Olympic gold medals.
That's right. different John Smith. But you get my point. I think some people, because Marshall, you're right. Like I think some people kind of got burned out because we're like, oh, another OSU guy. That's the only reason you're doing it. But if you take out the fact that he played at Oklahoma State and you just look at his resume alone, there's a lot there to really like. And yes, he has not coached. You know who else didn't coach? Mike Gundy. You know who else had never done it before? Lincoln Riley. You know what I'm saying? Like you got to get out of that mindset too. Like if he's right guy for the job, he's the right guy for the job. So yeah. I'm biased. That's my quarterback. But I love the idea of Zach doing it. But Colin Klein is like my close second. There's a lot I like about Colin Klein. And then if we're gonna go like more tenured coach, like Barry Odom and Josh Henson and some other, like I'm not opposed to that either. So it's gonna be interesting to see how it unfolds. So, but the reason I'm glad you brought that up, Marshall, because I'd seen it and read it from a couple people that were just like, oh, another OSU guy. You know, this is the only reason. I'm like, his resume is pretty freaking good. And I think if you took that away and you were like, you know, that was Colin Klein's resume, you'd be like, yeah, let's go do it.
So does it not give you any reservation that he doesn't have that head coaching experience whenever we're at such a pivotal moment to be able to really, in the next round of TV contracts and conference realignment and things like that, we don't really have the luxury of time. We need somebody that can come in and turn it around immediately. Do you think that Zach Robinson is that guy? Or do you think that we need to get somebody that has more experience in that program development?
Well, that's why I think Barry Odom is intriguing, because I do think that he brings a stability to a program that needs it from the inside out. It doesn't bother me, honestly. And quite frankly, if we're being 100% honest, this is Weiberg's job. Like if he hits this wrong, he's going to be out of a job in 3 years. So yeah. He's going to do everything right in his power. I think, going through the search firm and everything like that, because I think he understands, because as we found out, he was very close to not being renewed. And so like his one job right now is to get the football hire right, because of things you brought up, Justin. in the next 5 to 7 years, many of these TV contracts are going to be coming up. The donor for Tech, who's doing all the things with the government, is trying to put things into place for these super leagues and all these things to come together. Oklahoma State has to position themselves. You cannot fumble this. Like this is quite literally the difference between Oklahoma State being, a part of the list or we turn into Missouri State. Like, and I'm not trying to be hyperbolic. Like that's quite literally what could be on the line here. And as we've noticed, we've been left out every time. As much as we love our school, we've been left out. We're much closer to Washington State and Oregon State than we are to OU and Texas right now in the realignment talks. And we have to realize that. And I think we're seeing that as a fan base. Like we're showing up despite losing every football game. We're investing money. We're doing the things that we need to do. But you have to start winning. You have to start getting to playoffs. You have to get conference championships and put yourself in that position. And I think all of it kind of scares me. But if he's that certain that he's the guy, regardless of not having head coaching experience, I'm fine with it. It just has to be the right guy, despite him being our alma mater or never being a coach, or if that's Colin Klein, if that's Will Stein, if that's because a lot of these schools are going to be coming for the same guys, right? Arkansas just fired their coach.
Yep.
Virginia Tech's out there. UCLA's out there. There's more coming. Kentucky's going to lose their job. There's a good chance that Florida might fire their coach. You know what I mean? So the coordinator pool this year is very, very deep of high quality candidates, at least according to what you read. And so I'm not opposed to it from that standpoint.
Nathan, you said a name earlier that I don't think this is going to happen, but I've thought it in passing. Say USC goes downhill from here. How do you guys feel about Lincoln Riley standing on OSU sideline?
I mean, that's a fun offense to watch. He's terrible at program building, but that's a fun offense to watch.
He's going to find a quarterback. We know that about him. He's going to find a quarterback. Yeah, I don't think I think there's no way that happens. It would be poetic that, he gets his butt kicked in Bedlam, leaves the next day, and then is back after a failed stint in LA. But it would be cool in that recruiting would take a major uptick. You wonder if that's just good enough at this point to win in the Big 12, if his offense is just good enough on its own to sort of win in the Big 12. But yeah, I don't think that's going to be actually in the cards.
Yeah.
That would be wild. I have one more question about this topic real quick. Guys like Stein, Klein, Robinson, you've got the offensive coordinator experience. But when they come to Oklahoma State to be the head coach, I'm not anticipating that they're going to be the offensive coordinator and calling the plays. Their responsibilities shift, and so you would anticipate that would happen.
Absolutely,
they would.
I think if it's a young guy, I think he just
yeah.
I think they get to a point where, like Gundy, whenever he eventually gives the reins over to somebody that he trusts and is like, okay, this person at least understands what I'm trying to do here. But yeah, I think if Robinson, I think if Colin Klein, I think if those guys were the guy, they would.
I think
also
to your point, okay. Yeah, I think that's why it's even more important that you have the structures in place that maybe alleviate some of the things that Coach Gundy was doing on a daily basis. Or
so having that general manager, that role becomes infinitely more important.
That's in my perfect world. If I was the AD and I'd say this is what I want Oklahoma State structure to look like. Yes, I want as many pressure valves away from my head coach, especially if he's going to be my play caller, which the reason why I'm bringing Colin Klein, the reason why I'm bringing Will Stein, Zach Robinson is because of what they do. I definitely want them, to your point, Marshall, at least to start out that way. And then if you've got a GA or somebody like that basically is your right-hand man, you eventually want to hand it off to, Nick Saban essentially called Alabama's defense every year because they changed the coordinators and it was the same thing every time. You know what I mean? I don't want to kick a man while he's down, but Nick Saban is one of the people that said that Todd Grantham was a great coach, and that's why he got hired. So I think we understand what happened there.
Yeah. I wanted to throw this opportunity out for anybody that would be interested in being a founding sponsor for the Reload podcast. We have a few segments on here, one of them being the uniform review. We don't have a sponsor for that. So if you want to throw your hat in the ring, we've got some sponsorship opportunities for you. Just reach out to us and we'll fill you in on that. But the uniform review, we wore orange, black. for the first time ever. As hard as it is to believe that, we wore it for the first time ever. Guys, what did you think whenever you saw them coming out with orange, orange, black?
Cursive lid.
Yeah.
I loved it.
I honestly didn't know it was the first time ever till you had mentioned it on Twitter. It was all right. I think I'm getting older. I like white pants. I like the traditional traditional look. But like one game, I didn't mind it at all.
Sure. Yeah.
I really liked it. I thought it popped. I thought, the black offset it, and the helmet and jersey were close enough in match that it wasn't like too big of a, and they had like a little bit of a pearl to it on the orange paint, which I always like. I think that looks nice. So I thought it looked really good, and it helps that it's the best they've played in quite some time. So
sure. I always feel like the orange helmets and the orange jerseys don't quite match up, but it looked better than I thought it was going to. Whenever I first saw the Twitter post about it, I was like, I don't really know. Why didn't we wear it with the black Cursive Cowboys logo instead of the white? But then it all kind of came together pretty well, I think, overall. Not my favorite, but I'd give it a solid. It's like right there in the middle, probably for me. Maybe a little bit less than that, but we just have so many good combos where it's like, some of them's got to stink. This might be one of the ones that's like not my favorite.
I think the stripes have helped the orange look up top. I think the stripe takes away from maybe any discoloration that would be there.
It's a good call. That's a good point. So I put this out on Twitter today. Oklahoma State has now worn 26 out of the 27 possible combinations of the color combinations containing orange, black, and white. The last remaining combo that we have not worn yet is white, black, orange. And I think there's probably a pretty good reason why we haven't worn that one. But
that sounds terrible.
Yeah. An argument could be made that now that we have the white numbers on black jerseys, I think there's a way that you could maybe work it where you have a white helmet with a orange brand and a black face mask, orange, black, orange, triple stripe to make it flow into everything together. It could maybe look okay, but again, there's a reason why we haven't worn it yet, since all of our uniform combinations have come out since 2011. So
I think you'd have to go black brand. I think black brand orange face mask would look
that'd be cool.
Better. I don't know if cool is the right word, but it might get the job done if we're trying to hit all these combos.
We have not seen a black brand in a very long time, so I think that's. I'm going to talk to Weiberg about that brand standard stuff. Let's bring it back. All right, before we move over to the questions in the chamber, I wanted to give a chance to touch on other sports that aren't football because we had some massive news that came out this past Thursday. An Oklahoma State legacy and the best high school player in the state of Oklahoma will be a Cowboy. Marshall, you're a big basketball fan. Nathan, I know you're a big fan of this guy. But Marshall, I wanted to get your thoughts on Jalen Montanati announcing his commitment to Oklahoma State. What are some of the schools that he was being recruited by, and how big of a deal is this for Coach Lutz?
Yeah, obviously just a massive deal, because keeping these types of kids in state is huge, not only just because of their basketball skill, but huge for the fan base. The fan base loves these type of kids. The number 44 player in the country, according to ESPN, offers Kansas, Indiana, USC, Michigan, Houston, Alabama, all the good schools. He's a 2-time Gatorade Player of the Year in the state of Oklahoma. Nobody has ever done 3. He has that opportunity this year.
Oh my gosh,
so that's awesome. Plays high-level AAU ball on the EYBL circuit. This has been the longest, I think, recruiting process I have ever observed from afar. Boynton offered him in 2022, in September of 2022. So it was like his freshman year of high school just started. Boynton shoots him an offer. He's got McDonald's All-American potential. We'll see sort of where that cut line falls. But yeah, he's all the accolades, very good at basketball, still going to have a lot, he's going to defensively, he's got to jump levels, athleticism, needs to get in a college weight room and stuff like that. But he's 6'7" and can shoot 3. What more do you really, want in a guy? So yeah, I think Oklahoma State fans should be super excited about this.
It's cool you mentioned Boynton because even though he's not the coach at Oklahoma State anymore, he's at Michigan. And as we all know, Michigan basketball, big deal. And he potentially could have brought him up to Michigan. So it's very cool that we were still able to keep him here in state.
Yeah, I think the coolest part about it. Did you guys see the video of Brian Montanati like immediately after
The tears of
That
just
was awesome.
yeah,
he puts the hat on and is just bawling? I thought
just
that was
the pride. You could just like the pride beaming. Like you could see it off his cheeks. But to your point, Marshall, like this is the type of player Oklahoma State needs to start consistently getting if we're going to elevate the program again. Like he's not a one and done guy. His athleticism kind of is what it is, but he is the new modern. Like he's gonna be a stretch 3, stretch 4. He can really shoot it. To your point, Marshall, he needs to get bigger. He needs to, especially to compete in the Big 12. But he's one of these kids that could be here for 2-3 years easily and be a big time contributor. And I think it just says a lot about what our basketball coach was able to do. To your point, like Bill Self's been after him for the same amount of time at KU. He's only had one true year with him, and when you hear him talk, just like they made him a priority. He understood that, and I think Keaton Page deserves a lot of credit here because I think he was his primary recruiter, and obviously he's the one holdover. And being an Oklahoma kid, really selling that aspect of staying home and bringing it back, and that's just a job well done.
Yeah, Keaton is in charge of Oklahoma and international, so he's in charge of people who are really close and the farthest away. So I think that was super interesting. Something that so whenever Boynton got fired, and I know that you're not supposed to run a program like this, but like one of the first things in my mind was like, crap, what does that do with Montanati? Because again, I've been following this recruiting process forever. Jalen immediately after was like, yeah, the first day or the second day that Lutz was on the job, he called Jalen Montanati. Whenever a recruiting period just opened in earlier September, Steve Lutz was at the Montanati household at midnight to say, hey, the recruiting period's open. I'd like to talk to you now. So that's the sort of stuff that like I was a little worried that, the coaching change was going to maybe shift him somewhere else. But Lutz, Keaton Page, the way that they came in and really put the hammer down there at the end, especially big ups for that group.
Yeah. And this is not me comparing him to this at all, but I mean, the state of Oklahoma has no shortage of churning out high impact players. So if we can get back to really getting these types of players, they're here in our own state, and we need to be making sure that we're in the conversation in doing this. So it's a big deal. It's good get.
All right, let's jump over to some questions in the chamber. John Laxative, if each of you could pick one player on this roster that you think has the best chance for the longest NFL career, who would it be?
That's an easy one for me.
Wendell Gregory.
Because we just talked about him at nauseum.
Yeah, that's by far on the roster right now the guy that has the best chance. I think a guy like Grant Seagram, because of his background and being a tight end that basically just got too big and the athleticism there, we saw that happen with Lane Johnson. I mean, that's why Lane Johnson is such an athletic tackle. Not comparing him to Lane Johnson, but that's the same type of path. And he's a big enough kid. He's got the tools, but right now, it's an easy one for me. It's Wendell Gregory.
Yeah, Seagrin today, whenever we were talking to him, they were like, so how did you sort of transition offensive line? He said, I showed up at Nebraska and they just told me go with the offensive line. And so that was just sort of how it happened.
Got one here from NY Cowboy. What Gundy era player would have the most impact on this team if they were playing right now in their prime?
The easy answer is, whichever quarterback you'd like to pick. I think a wide receiver would do really. I think this team needs a standout guy who's going to get some separation. Blackman's the obvious pick, but I'm going to go Dez just because I want something freaky.
That was my pick.
Yeah,
that's actually mine too. Yeah,
that was my pick.
He can do it all, man.
I was going to say because he can take over a game. He was a punt returner. Yep. He did. He took screens to the house. He took deep balls. Hey, have you ever seen Dez? I don't know if you've ever seen Dez throw the football.
Dez can throw it.
Absolutely, he can, and it's good. Like he can absolutely spin it. But anyways, my pick was Dez Bryant as well, just because he literally could take over a game by himself, and we sorely need a game wrecker.
All of our answers are correct. Spot on so far. Good job, guys.
We didn't talk about this before, honestly. I promise.
Spruce asks, who do you see as priorities to keep from transferring out? Of course,
Wendell Gregory.
Wendell Gregory. We talked about that a little bit already. But outside of Wendell Gregory, is there anybody right now that's like, hey, this is a priority. We've got to keep him?
I know we've not seen much of him, and I'm hoping he does come back. But Haas Haney has a special skill set that you can do a lot with. And I think one of the things that can't happen this offseason, we can't flip over the entire roster again. It's not a good thing to be doing. And so we've got to make some of these guys priorities, and the new coach does. And I think that starts with, because he's a leader. There's something, he's got some juice, in things like that. If you can talk a kid into like saying, hey, you're going to be the guy for Oklahoma State football, turning this around and so forth and so on. If you can really sell him on that, I think he has the ability to do that. And so for me, you look at a guy like Haas Haney and obviously Wendell Gregory. Those are the two guys that come right to my mind of like, hey, these have to be priorities because they're cornerstones on both sides of the ball that I think, I'm not saying Haas is an NFL kid, but I think he can be an exceptional college quarterback. And he's got a special skill set that makes it a problem for people.
Yeah, I'll add to that. I think that we shouldn't take Rodney Fields being an Oklahoman for granted. Like, that kid is good at football. We gotta there's somebody's got to figure out a way to keep him in Stillwater. And then honestly, both offensive tackles right now, they are both redshirt freshmen playing offensive tackle on an offensive line that looks at least better than last year's offensive line.
They're improving quickly.
Yeah. So, even if it doesn't work out like long term, even if they're not, the guys the entire time on their campus here, I think we've learned over the last however many years that having depth in the offensive line room is a very important part. So I think keeping both of those tackles in particular, because they're so young and this group does seem to be, progressing. I think keeping both of those guys would be really big in Grant Segrin and Nuku Mafi.
Yeah, agreed.
All right, Sherlock Ohms. Saturday was the most fun I've had watching us play football in quite some time. What was each of your favorite plays from the game?
The double pass is obviously going to get a lot of love. My favorite quasi, quote unquote gadget play was the Jackson started at quarterback and then just sort of like the quick toss to Trent Howland. They got a first down. I think it was on third down. Got a first down. Defense just looked super confused, and all of a sudden a freight train was running at them. So all of that was good.
Yeah, there was a couple. I think there was a run play where we did like a little misdirection, and then I think it was the right tackle and right guard pulled, and we absolutely, opened up a huge hole. And it's just like, oh man, like it has been a while since we've just had one pop open like that. And whenever I saw that, I was just like, I think it's easy because you look at Coach Meach now. Coach Meach was an offensive lineman, so at heart, he knows that it runs through that.
It's crazy
right?
to think of him as an
It really
lineman,
is, isn't it? It is. So whenever I saw that, I was just like, yeah, man, like that's what I'm talking about. Like we need to get back to that. And obviously the Sam Jackson package, because just him being out there now is going to cause anxiety. Yeah. It doesn't matter where he lines up, as it should be. You need to get your best players on the field, and the defense has to be able to account for them. So I don't care when Haas comes back or not. You can have both those guys standing back there. They can both house it. You know what I'm saying? Like those type of things got me excited.
One of my favorite plays that we haven't touched on so far is Rodney Fields, whenever he was making some Barry-esque cutbacks, juking across the field. I was like, dude, elicited a tweet out of me. I had the eyeball emojis. And so some people didn't really know what that meant. They thought that I was predicting Grantham getting fired, I guess, which
good job.
That could have been true too. So
look at you.
Cade Webb's tweet on Grantham was hilarious.
Was that not hilarious? That was awesome.
Hilarious. And again, guy lost his job. That part's not hilarious, but the fact that he was like, I think the tweet was
establish dominance.
Yeah, Doug Meacham should establish dominance and fire Todd Grantham, and then that's what happened. So that was just crazy that Cade nailed that as well as he did.
Yeah, very much so. To your point though, I was just looking at it. Howland 5.3 yards a carry, Fields 7.8 yards a carry, Sam Jackson 4.5 yards a carry, Zane Flores 4.2 yards a carry.
I mean, that was minus Flores' touchdown run getting taken off.
Yes, exactly. That,
a hurdle.
Yeah. Looked like a giraffe getting out of a trailer, but he made it. Sorry.
Zane's going to throw a 90-yard bomb, and you're going to be like, Spiral wasn't really.
I'm sorry. I'm just not
a little bit.
I'm not sold. Anyways, I'm not gonna get into that right now. We can, but yeah, that's again, Baylor's not a great defense. Let's not
And
pump them
they
up.
had some injuries and stuff too, which again, you got to take advantage of that, right? So
But still,
it's good. It's good that we were
we
able to
ran for like 3
run.
yards a carry against UT Martin and Tulsa, and so against a pretty good team,
It was
we
nice to
ran much
see
better.
the chains moving consistently again. So
I think the past 2 weeks they've ran for 4.9 or better. Oklahoma State. That happened twice all last season. So
What did we have? I think we had 24 first downs in this game. I think if I remember correctly.
24, 22 maybe.
Either way, 20
Yeah.
something first downs. And I don't know if we've got
Good.
20 something first downs in the 3 games
I
combined.
think we did against Tulsa.
22 first downs.
There you go. Yep, looking at it right now. Yep, 22 first downs, 448 total. No turnovers, 1 sack allowed, 78 total plays. Like, that's not a bad game. You can win games with that. We could not win games with what we were doing before. Can't win games with 8 penalties, though. We need to cut that out.
Yeah, that's gross. I think those refs were like having a little fun, honestly. They were just like every play. There's 2 of them.
I'm looking at this. We had 24 first downs against Tulsa.
Oh, boy, I was wrong.
Hard.
I don't remember 9 of those.
I don't remember 20 of them.
That is crazy.
I don't remember until, well, I guess that for, yeah.
I only put up 12 points. Okay.
Oh, wolf.
We don't have to go back to that game. We're looking ahead. We are moving forward. And we are starting with Pokes 2135 with this question. Other than the trick plays, what were some of the things Meach did with our offense that proved to be effective?
Nathan's going to have a much better answer on this than I am, but I'll just sort of take a cop-out answer and say that the trick plays almost seemingly opened up the rest. The threat of creativity seemingly opened up the rest of what Oklahoma State was going to do, because you're like sort of on your heels, like, okay, I know that they're probably going to just do an inside zone here, but I've got to watch Sam Jackson just in case he does something crazy. So I think just like the thought of, hey, Oklahoma State could do something crazy, so you better not just expect them to run inside zone every play. I think that just helped everything.
Absolutely, Marshall. The threat of misdirection is going to slow down the backside. You know what I mean? Like, we've been trying to do it with that, like, that long look by Flores when he's never actually going to take it, and the defensive end doesn't care, and he just crashes right down and tackles the running back, right? Now that you've got Sam Jackson running in motion and doing these things, like, you're actually having to account for certain things. We saw an empty set that we haven't seen before. Again, you run an empty set with Haas Haney and they're in man coverage, he has a chance to take that 75 yards. Those type of things, and again, like I said, we saw two people pulling. I know we've seen that before, but it was in a little bit of a different set than we've seen before. Our tight end caught a touchdown, which is refreshing, even though it's from Sam Jackson, who threw a touchdown pass before Zane Flores did. And there's just a lot there from that standpoint of being able to. I think the biggest thing I just saw was just a freshness to it that the defense actually had to start accounting for the things that were like out there. There was nothing out there that you're like, okay, they're definitely not going to do this after they started doing the misdirection with Sam Jackson. They
were probably so thrown off whenever you got guys running in motion and then you've got deep passes on first down. It's like, this is not what we prepared for. We were expecting vanilla stuff, running up the middle. So I think you guys nailed it as far as the effectiveness of our offense is don't be vanilla.
Yeah, and I think moving forward, we saw Tulsa do this. We saw Baylor do this in the second half. Whoever our quarterback is going to be has to complete one-on-one balls on the outside. Like, it's mandatory. Yeah. Because
how much of that is one, quarterback accuracy versus two, receivers being able to get separation?
Obviously, as you know, that's both, right?
From what I saw, do you think that there's one that you have one leans?
Marshall's just going to call me a hater, but
I might.
There was big time struggles hitting guys that were winning one-on-one battles and putting the ball on the proper side in that game.
Yeah, I'll say that I don't think the receivers are doing a good job of getting open. At the same time, there was a ball, this is one specific play, but there's a pass over the middle. Oklahoma State was deep in its own territory in the west end zone. pass to supposed to be to Gavin Freeman. If that gets led a little bit, I think Gavin is gone.
Absolutely.
Jumps, it's a little behind him. Pass gets knocked down. So yeah, there are bad balls. Zane, but at the same time, like somebody help him. Somebody help the guy. Somebody make a play to help this guy get rolling.
That's why we picked Des Bryant for other questions.
Yes, yeah.
But
just throw it around.
No, but I think
even
some
if
of the
he's
things
not getting separation, he's getting separation vertically. You know, Zach can just lob it up to him.
I don't want to pile on the kid, but if we're just being full and transparent, one of the things that is, and if you're listening on TV, you had Aaron Murray, who's a ex quarterback, and really one of the things that Zane has to get better at pretty quickly here if he's going to retain this job is his processing speed has to ramp up pretty quickly, because it's a one read and like, oh crap. And if what the defense switches to after your first look takes away what he thought he was going to see, like, it was not good. And there's a couple times where he stood in a couple times and took some shots, but there was a couple times like when he had one in his face and the guy was wide open and he threw it in the dirt, and you're just like, you just can't do that. And if you pre-snap, if you've got your guy one-on-one, you got to give him a chance. And there's just a lot of areas for growth.
The RPO pool to the slant Shamar Rigby.
That was a good choice. It's a great choice. Great choice.
Rigby had a good game.
He did.
Also, Gavin Freeman has been itching to hurdle somebody, and
he went Antonio Brown, just kick him in the face mask.
I think if there was a guy on that guy's shoulders, Gavin Freeman would have still attempted to jump over him.
Absolutely.
That was how crazy.
He was ready. All right, last one here from Madman, which I'm not so sure. Is this Nathan? Is this your burner in the chamber? Madman asks, who do you think is the best Texas G5 head coach candidate and why? We've got GJ Kinney from Texas State, Eric Morris from North Texas, or Jeff Traylor from UTSA.
I pulled up some coaching stats just to help us a little bit. Eric Morris is in his third year at North Texas. He's got a 16-14 record, but the Mean Green are currently 5-0 right now. GJ Kinney is in his third year at Texas State. He's got a 19-11 record. They're 3-1 right now. And Jeff Traylor is in year 6 at UTSA, and he's 48-22. I think all good options. I don't know, with how Eric Morris is playing right now, that's exciting that North Texas is 5-0 right now.
They were terrible when he took that job.
Yeah, and he went 5-7, 6-7. Now they're 5-0. So maybe from here it's all gone. I think Jeff Traylor's probably the safest in that he's been doing it the longest. And then GJ Kinney's sort of somewhere in the middle where super exciting, went 8-5 instantly, and is now 3-1 in his third year. So it sort of depends on if you want more long-term proven experience, if you just really believe in what Eric Morris is doing and that from this point on, North Texas is going to get rolling, or GJ Kinney, who's just been solidly good basically since he stepped into San Marcos.
Yeah. I don't know. I probably would lean GJ because Texas State was really, really bad, and he's walked into that thing and done it right away. And I like his pedigree from a coaching, quarterbacking perspective. But there's something about Eric Morris that I'm really intrigued by what he's able to do. I think he's got some of that Mike Leach, Hal Mummy coaching tree in him. So he wants to spin it. He wants to get it going. So I love that. And I don't know.
Texas State had never won 8 games at the FBS level until GJ Kinney got there, and he did in his first year.
Yeah. He's on it back-to-back. So.
Pretty good stat.
Yeah.
What about Eric Taylor from Dillon High School, Friday Night Lights?
Clear eyes, full hearts, baby.
Can't lose.
If Tim
Talk
Riggins is
program
coming.
builder.
Yeah. Is Riggins coming in the NIL? What do we got here?
Need the smash. Saracen could probably stay at home.
Yeah, we don't need another.
we don't have the time for the ups and downs of Matt Saracen.
Oh, Tim Riggins.
Oh man. All right. Well, that is it for the questions in the chamber. If you guys want to sign up for that, PFB Plus, get a subscription. We'll give you a discount with a link in the description. You can ask your questions to us in the chamber. Sign up for that. Guys, anything else you want to cover before we head out tonight?
No, I was just going to say, I just want to say I was so proud of the kids' effort in that game, what the coaches were able to do in essentially 72 hours, it just made me really proud, because there's a good enough reasons, and a lot of them, for kids to pack it in and not give the effort that they gave in all the things that just their life turned upside down. And I thought it was awesome. I thought it was awesome to see the crowd, and I fully expect our next home game to even see it better than it was, because they're going to respond to watching fun football again, even if it's a loss, because we've just been needing it so bad. So I just wanted to say I greatly appreciate the work that the coaches did, and I realize how uncomfortable position it is for them and their families because of the unknowns, and for their kids. And so, just as an alum and a former player and a fan, I really appreciate what they did on Saturday.
I've got honestly
tweeted out
nothing better than that.
45,689. So 87.5% full right after the firing of your head coach for 21 years. I mean, the fans are invested. We're ready to see some.
We're sickos, and that's the best compliment you can give them.
Yeah.
I mean, you literally haven't won an FBS football game in a year and a half. It's been terrible. Quite literally the worst defense in college football for a year and a half. And you still showing up every single Saturday.
Yep.
When 90% of your fans are having to drive at least an hour.
Yeah.
One way or the other. And
it was good to see Hartley Dykes there.
Yes.
And Barry Sanders.
Yeah, so but I just think,
made it better too.
Honestly, for the players that are there right now, the players that you're wanting to get, and the coaches that you're hoping to get, for us to continue to show them.
Yeah. Big deal.
It's a big deal, and we need to keep doing it.
Because who wants to go coach at UCLA? They don't have any fans, you know? All right. Here's your chance before the episode ends to like, share, subscribe, comment to show your support. Nate, here's your chance.
You want to say anything nice about any starting quarterbacks?
I'm happy for Zane. He gets another opportunity to see what he's got.
Always next week.
Until then,
I know.
Keep those pistols firing and remember to reload. Go Pokes.